Knives Sports Adventures here. Today we are talking about a knife that I am having trouble hiding my enthusiasm for. This is the Kizer Basalt, and this knife is EDC magic. So this knife is a lot of things that you've seen before and probably some things that are a little different. Let's dive right in. So first of all, the size of this knife is kind of Goldilocks just right, you know. It fills the hand without really going beyond the hand. The blade is long enough to do pretty much anything you need to do with a knife, but it's not too long that it gets in the way. The blade shape has a nice flat spot there for slicing that doesn't slide off of things very well, or very badly. So it stays in like a rope or something if you're slicing it. It has a swept back point for getting into places where you need that, but it's dropped forward, so it has a very stabbable point as well. So it's just kind of best of all worlds in a lot of ways. The handle is titanium. It has a PVD coating on it, which has been pretty durable, although I don't know why you really need a PVD coating on a titanium knife. I will say that it does seem to be a little stickier than just bare titanium, so I kind of like it. But the main reason you would typically put a coating on something like that is so that you don't get corrosion, but titanium doesn't rust. So not completely sure why they went with that decision, but it works well for the knife. It does look kind of cool. The back spacer is anodized rather than PVD coated. The blade on this is S35VN, but it has a better heat treat than I have seen on other S35VN knives. Cut testing, this actually made 375 cuts before becoming dull enough where it started to tear paper in my cutting test, which I should put a video up about that. So that's actually one of the better knives that I've ever tested. Other S35VN knives I have tested have only made about 175, 200 cuts before they started getting dull. This one did quite a bit better than that, so really good heat treating on that. So let's look at the weight here. Weight on this knife. Zero out the scale here. We're looking right at 3.5 ounces. If we look at a size comparison, there's the Basalt. There's a Benchmade Griptilian, so it's right in that same range. There's a Microtech Ultratech, Kizer Splinter, and a Kizer Clutch. So it's all kind of right in that same range. It's slightly more substantial in your hand than the Ultratech. Pretty close though. Slightly more substantial than the Clutch, less so than the Griptilian. There's less to grip onto there. If you look at the blade compared to the Griptilian, it's more of a straight edge than the Griptilian, which I like because it tends to bite into things better and it doesn't kind of slip off the end quite so much. So that's what you're looking at on the size there. Let's get into the disassembly. I have not disassembled this knife yet, so we will look at it and I will see it for the first time on the video here. So if you see the pivot pin there is custom pivot pin, but it is not keyed. So you do need two T8s to disassemble it. I suspected that, given both sides are. Both sides have the T8 head on them. So this side is coming off. There is your pivot bolt. Okay. And then the bolts on the back here are actually T8 as well, which I like that. I prefer that. That seems to be a better idea to me than making them little baby T6s that tend to strip really badly. So I much prefer to see all the hardware be the same size. It's one thing that Kizer does on a relatively frequent basis that I appreciate a lot. So one thing you'll see right away is that these titanium handles are really heavily skeletonized. That makes this knife a lot lighter than you would expect it to be, given its size and the fact that it's got full metal handles. There's the bearings. So these are the little tiny bearings. They appear to be, from what I can tell, ceramic bearings, but they're relatively small. They're kind of not like the tiny ones, but they're not the larger ones either. Kind of a middle-sized bearing. So durability should be good there. You can see the back of the knife there around the stop pin has been kind of rounded, so you get more surface area there. That's well designed. Blade tang is not skeletonized too far. That's a good thing. There's the other bearing, and you can see what they've done, which I really appreciate. They've left enough thickness in the titanium that they've recessed the bearings into the titanium rather than recessing them into the knife blade, which leaves more knife blade here under the pivot to make it sturdier so that it's less likely to break. So I appreciate that as well about this. Back spacer just kind of pops off there. These appear to be like barrel nuts on the inside, so it's not a bolt and a nut on one side. This is a barrel nut on the inside there, so there's two bolts, one on either side of the handle going into the back there and into the back spacer. Pocket clip is just a 2-bolt there. There's the over travel stop on the frame lock. Frame lock is nice and stiff. It has a little bit of bend to it, as you can see there, but not very much. Even that is skeletonized. So just a really solid knife. Kind of spans somewhere between EDC and a harder use knife. So this is kind of a robust EDC. Really well designed. One of my favorite knives to carry. I haven't carried this one as much as I otherwise would have, because I've just been afraid of scratching it. So far that has not been an issue, and I'm definitely going to be carrying this a lot more now that I've done the review. I've done my testing and stuff, obviously, but really cool knife. Like it a lot. If you're looking for like a cross between a gentleman's and an EDC knife that also is pretty sturdy but not too big, that's a hard niche to fill in any market, and this does it really well. So very much like this knife, very highly recommended. Hope you enjoy. Please like, subscribe, etc., and keep adventuring.